Hi everyone, welcome to the Taste of Home Kitchen. My name's Josh and this is Sam.
Hello.
And we're going to show you a really amazing recipe today called the Twisted Star Bread. And it looks complicated to make.
It does.
But actually it's a lot easier than you think. Now, Sam, are you a baker at home?
I am a beginner baker,
Yeah.
so...
I just want to emphasize that this recipe is easier than you think and we can do it. So,
Okay.
Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready, let's do this.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to do is heat our water. And the reason you want to heat your water is because the yeast needs a warm environment to grow.
Okay.
So we're going to heat it to about 110, 115 degrees. I have my wonderful little thermometer here. This thing is really detailed and it's going to tell us exactly the temperature of that water.
So what if it's a little bit over? Is that okay?
A little bit over is just fine, but we're at
115.8.
115.8, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to have you add the yeast right there.
Okay.
So that's just one package of yeast, which is about 1/4 of an ounce. Just go ahead and add the whole thing.
Okay.
And then I like to add sugar, and what the sugar does is that'll feed your yeast and get it all nice
So
and
right
bubbly.
now add it?
Yeah, go right ahead and add it.
It feels like there's a lot of yeast in here for the water, but...
Yeah, no, it'll start to dissolve as it rests. So while that is doing its thing, getting all nice and bubbly and happy, we're going to warm the milk, get it to the same temperature, 110 to 115 degrees. So we're going to add our butter to the bowl, which is about 1/4 cup of butter, our 1 egg, and I like to have the egg at room temperature. I'm also going to add 1/4 cup of sugar.
Okay.
And also going to add some salt.
Okay.
And we're going to let that mix, so go ahead and add that to our bowl.
Okay.
Now if you at home don't have a KitchenAid mixer, don't worry about that. You can easily do this by hand. We're just getting the dough a good start in the mixer. So we're just going to give this a little mix, let that get going. All right, so we're going to let this continue to mix.
Okay.
We're going to wait for our yeast to get nice and bubbly and happy, and once that's ready, then we'll add it to our ingredients in the bowl and start adding our flour.
Okay.
So if you'll take a look at our yeast, you'll notice all the bubbles. It's more than doubled in size. It's puffy, it's happy. That means the yeast has been activated and it's ready to add to our other ingredients. Now I have 3 1/4 cups flour here, and then I have another 1/2 cup set off the side. And the reason you're doing that is because depending on your environmental factors, if it's humid outside, whatever, you might not need all of the flour.
Sure.
So we're going to start with this base amount, and then if we need it, we can use that additional 1/2 cup just to bring the dough together.
Just in case flour.
That's
what it is.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, just in case.
So we're just going to go ahead and dump all of this in here at once, this first part. So this, again, this is about 3 1/4 cups of flour. Just add that in, and it's going to get really goopy. But we're going to keep mixing it until it's nice and smooth. And I'm going to change this little paddle to what's called a bread hook.
And why do you change it?
The dough, as it forms, will start to wrap around it, and it'll actually help to mimic kneading by hand, and it'll help develop those gluten strands in that bread that I was talking about earlier, which is going to allow your bread to rise and puff as the yeast activates.
Sure.
So you can see it starting to come together and form that ball I was talking about. And if we had used that paddle attachment, it wouldn't be mixing.
Pushed it around.
Yeah, you got it.
So what are you looking for consistency-wise when you add this?
Well, at this beginning stage, it's going to be kind of tacky and wet.
Okay.
They call it shaggy. Is a term that they use.
So let's say, for argument's sake, you didn't add more flour. What does the end product look like? Like if you just left it more like shaggy, as you said, and you baked it, would it like be less good?
So if you don't have enough flour, yes, it can affect your end result of the bread itself.
It's good to know.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
So we're just going to scoop this out of the mixer bowl here, and remember, it's going to be a little sticky, a little wet, a little tacky, but that will soon change as we get it all kneaded and developed. So I'm going to flour my hand so it doesn't stick to me, and again, look, here we go.
Yep.
Never trust a cook with a clean apron. And I use the palm of my hands and just give it a little push.
Okay.
1/4 turn and a little push. And what we're doing right now is we're developing the gluten strands. So again, as the yeast builds and grows inside the bread and releases the gases that cause it to puff, the gluten will be strong enough to hold those air bubbles inside the bread, and that's what allows it to rise beautifully like what we want.
Okay. So when I'm doing this, what kind of, I guess, feel am I going for? Like,
so
how do I
you're
know
looking
it's done?
for a nice stretch with the dough. How does it feel?
It feels pretty pliable, I'd say.
Like a Play-Doh, maybe?
We're getting close.
Okay.
I shouldn't say we're getting close as if I know.
So yeah, you can tell that it's come together. It's no longer sticky. You see how nice and soft and malleable it is. And it's got a nice consistency to it. One of the ways that you can tell that it's ready is it starts to develop those long strands. All right, so now that we've got our dough kneaded and in the proper shape, I'm gonna put it in an oiled bowl. And the oil just keeps the dough from sticking as it rises, because it's gonna get full of air bubbles, and give it a turn once over so it's coated. Then we're gonna cover it with a kitchen towel. The reason we do that, it just helps to keep the bread loaf from drying out as it rises. Also, it helps to keep in some of that humidity and that temperature. Now, the proper temperature for letting your bread rise is about 75 degrees up to 90. You can also just preheat your oven and set your dough next to your oven, and the warmth radiating out of the oven will also help it rise.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, what do you just like put it in a room and just guess? Like, this seems like 80. This seems like 80 to me. That'll be fine.
We're gonna set this over here and let it rise for about an hour, and we're gonna see how puffed and beautiful it's gonna look.
Awesome.
And I'm gonna show you how beautifully our dough has risen. All that hard work we did kneading it and adding that warm.
Whoa.
Look at that, isn't that great?
That's huge. It started like this big.
Yeah. So we're gonna flour the surface once again. Ever-present flour. And we're just gonna plop this dough onto that. Now what we're gonna do now is we're going to work on creating the layers for our star bread.
Okay.
So we gotta divide this into 4 portions. Now, if you were super picky, you could use a scale and weigh them out, make sure that each segment was precise. But remember, this bread is easy. We don't have to worry about that.
We don't have to worry about scales this time.
So I'm gonna use my handy dandy tool, like bench scraper. And these other 2, I'm going to put back in that bowl and keep covered. And the reason we do that is we don't want the dough to dry out as it sits.
Oh, sure.
So we just cover it with that towel in the same bowl, and we'll get to these 2 later.
It's still nice and warm.
Yeah, isn't that great? These are some rolling mats, and you can see on the front there, they have
they have the sizes.
Yeah. So this is great for rolling up pies, pizza doughs, and everything when you have to have a specific size. Now, like I said, this bread is easy.
Yes.
You don't need this. You could use a ruler, you could use a cutout piece of parchment paper.
Sure.
But we're gonna aim to roll these out to about 12 inches in diameter.
Okay.
And now check these out. Look at these enormous rolling pins. Aren't these great?
Oh my goodness.
The reason I like them so much is they're heavy.
They
so
are.
you don't have to work so hard to roll out the dough.
Yeah, it does your work for you.
Exactly. And this one even has ball bearings, so it rolls really well. Isn't that great?
I got the Mercedes-Benz of rolling pins.
So nice. So I like to sort of pre-form it into a little bit of a disc.
Okay.
And you can see this, the second to last ring is about the 12-inch diameter that we're looking for. And what you want to do is you want to start in the middle with your rolling pin.
Okay.
And then work your way out.
Okay, so what if this happens? Like, what if it's not
that's
circle?
Totally fine. So again, we don't have to baby this. And you can just rework it as you need to. So if you get halfway done and it's forming an oval and not a circle, it doesn't hurt the dough just to reform it and start over from scratch.
Okay.
You don't have to be too precise. You don't have to be too picky, because remember, this bread is what?
Easy.
Yes.
Easy, easy. And how thin are we looking to roll these?
Oh, maybe about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
And you can see by looking at this is not a perfect circle. You don't have to aim for that, but you do want to get it to as close to the 12 inches as possible. Hey, look at that, perfect. Wow. Great job. Okay, so we are going to start layering our star bread now. So you can either grease your pan, or you can also use parchment paper, which I like to use parchment paper.
Is there a benefit to using parchment paper over grease?
Not really.
No.
It's just a personal preference. We're going to transfer one of our rolled portions of dough to this platter, and what I do is I just use my rolling pin.
Oh, okay.
Just roll it up, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect because this bread is easy.
Yep.
Now we are ready for some jam. So this is 3/4 cup of jam, and we add 1/4 to each layer. So the way you know you have a 1/4 cup is just to measure it out. Spread evenly. It's a real thin layer. A lot of this will kind of bubble and seep out as it bakes, so you don't want too much jam.
Okay.
So that's why it's only 1/4 cup per layer. Just roll it around your rolling pin there. Flop it right on there.
It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up, right?
It does not have to be perfectly lined up, because again, we're going to cut and twist this bread.
Okay.
So that's the glory of it. is it looks fussy. It looks like you have to be super precise.
Yeah.
But actually you don't.
Cool.
So go ahead and add your 1/4 cup of jam there.
All right. Can you do this with any other kind of filling?
Oh, sure. You can use blueberry, you can use strawberry. I would avoid anything with large chunks of fruit in it, just so it's easier to spread.
Sure.
But sure, you can use any flavor you like. Perfect.
Cool.
Now see, was that hard?
No, it's
so
been
far,
easy
it's
so
been
far.
easy.
So far, so good.
So now that we've got these 2 portions rolled out and the jam spread, we're gonna roll out 2 more portions, spread 1 more layer of jam, and we're good to go.
Great, and you'll see that right now.
Awesome. Now that we have everything layered, we've put our final layer on top.
Yep.
We've got all the beautiful raspberry jam below, and you can see
Looks
that the
good.
whole thing is not perfect, and it
It's
doesn't
not.
matter. And you know why? It's because we're going to cut and twist this bread.
Okay.
So what I have here is just a basic biscuit cookie cutter, just round about 3 inches. We're going to put that in the middle, and you don't want to push down.
Okay.
And we're going to use our handy dandy pizza cutter, and we're going to start cutting. So we're going to just start by forming halves, and then cutting those halves. We're forming 8 arms, basically.
Okay. So you're making sure you get all the way to the bottom, right?
Yes,
You want to get all
you
4
got it,
layers.
You got it. But then the fun part is what we do next, and that's what gives the bread its shape.
It makes it look
interest.
cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And impresses everyone.
Exactly.
That's my end goal here.
All right, so now that we've got all of our various arms cut, you just pick up 2 of these pieces and you twist out twice, and it's going to look like a mess.
Yeah, this is the intimidating part for me because
The
all the
jam's
jam
going to leak
starts
out.
coming
You're right. It's going to look like a mess, but as it rises, it's going to
Hide all those
puff
imperfections.
out. Exactly. And you're just going to squeeze the ends together. Now again, that looks like a mess.
Okay.
So
It
now
does.
it's your turn to try.
Okay, well-
Just pick it up and twist out twice, and then pinch the ends together.
Okay, so twist out. So twist. like
See,
here,
look.
And then
Yours looks so much better than
and then
mine.
pinch these.
Yeah, you got it. Got it. See?
Oh, okay.
You are a professional baker. Look at that.
I've graduated.
So again, you just pick it up, twist twice out, just like that, and then you pinch these ends together, and that's what's going to form that beautiful, impressive star shape.
You can already see it kind of come together. It's really cool already.
So again, a lot of this is going to proof out and bake away as it cooks. So even though it doesn't look perfect, it's going to look stunning when it comes out of the oven.
Great.
So now we just cover this with a kitchen towel like we did before. Let it rise for about 30 minutes or an hour, depending on how long it takes for it to double in size.
Okay.
And then just toss it in the oven. All right, now we wait.
Great.
Okay, so this has risen for about 30 minutes, a little bit longer with this one, but you can see all those flaws.
Huge now.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
It's fun to see it puff like that, and that's the yeast working really well. So if you find that some of your ends have separated, you can pinch them back together. I think this looks great.
Yeah, it looks good.
So we're gonna pop this in the oven, 375 for about 20 minutes, give or take. Once it starts turning golden brown, then you know it's getting close to being done. Look at this bread,
Wow.
isn't it beautiful?
It looks great.
And you would never know. Look at how nice the ends look.
Yeah.
I told you, if you just pinch them together real good, and between the proofing and the baking, all the flaws bake out. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks great.
And it's still a little warm, but it's mostly cooled. So I'm just gonna brush with butter.
It looks amazing.
So just as a finishing touch, you can put on some powdered sugar right before you serve it. Now, isn't that just gorgeous?
It
Powdered
looks
sugar
good.
just adds that nice finishing touch.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. We did a great job. Now, be honest, was this hard?
It was not. And I'm not a professional baker by any means.
Good. I was hoping you would say that. So I hope you're encouraged to make this at home for yourself, your friends,
Yeah.
and your family. Also, our viewers at home, I hope you're encouraged to try this as well. It's a great recipe. It looks amazing. It tastes just as good as it looks. So don't forget to visit tasteofhome.com for this recipe, plus other tips and tricks.